Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is called to order. The first order of business is to establish a quorum. Frank Thorwald.
Stephen Cooper.
Dale Nations. Bill Fire-Robin.
We have a majority. We have a quorum. Is there any conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 2, discussion and consideration and possible vote by the members on minutes from the July 12th meeting. Has everybody reviewed those meetings? Is there any discussion on those minutes? Any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. Is there any abstentions, or, well, there isn't any abstentions or nays? The motion carries. Let's move on to item 3, Cobalt Group. 2 requests for commission's approval. Dennis, would you go through this?
Is any member of the Cobalt Group on the phone?
Yes, hi Dennis, this is Scott.
Oh, hi Scott. Okay. So Cobalt, first of all, has asked for an expiration date extension on the permits listed in the table on the agenda. There's a good reason for doing that. They're just a small company that doesn't have a lot of opportunity for pulling a lot of drill rigs together all at once, so it's just a matter of rig availability. I recommend extending them. They asked for 180 days, so the requested date would be there in that last column. Scott, did you have any other input for us in regards to your permit extension request?
No, I just want to thank you and the commission for your time. As you stated, our biggest challenge right now is logistics, trying to get the correct rig that we're looking for. We're redesigning the well program, specifically the mud or fluid design, in such a way that we can, as we encounter the Coconino sandstone, we can attempt to prevent lost circulation in that zone. And our attempt there is, our focus now is not primarily the Coconino sandstone, but to go deeper, specifically the Supai and beyond.
Dennis, any other?
No, the requested dates, I added 180 dates to the current, excuse me, the current expiration dates. 3 of them are the same, and then you got one that's a little earlier by a month.
Commissioners, does anyone have any questions on this?
Mr. Chairman, I know the person called in Scott, but for the minutes in the meeting, could we get his full name for the record?
Yes. Can you please give us your full name?
Yeah, you bet. Scott Bowles.
And you're with?
The Cobalt Group.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other discussion or questions? Any motions to approve this?
I'll move to approve that extension to 180 days for those wells.
From what date?
From the expiration date listed on that table.
Okay. I second that motion. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Not hearing any opposed or abstentions? None. The motion carries. Moving on to 3B, the operator requests approval of temporary abandonment of Cobalt's 20-22-9 number 1 state permit 1233. Dennis, do you want to fill us in on this?
They submitted justification for needing extra time. I think I have discussed in previous meetings and in memos that they had been wanting to run some velocity logs to kind of tighten up their seismic interpretations. And at this time, I think they're requesting a temporary abandonment. The beneficial use is that they're going to be exploring deeper, and we can always gain from more information drilling deeper. Again, Scott, did you want to add anything to that? I recommend that the approval of temporary abandonment be approved. You asked for up to 5 years. Anything else you want to add?
No, Dennis, I think what you said was adequate. Just one item I guess I could address is this is similar to 3A, simply because what we're trying to do is to reduce the cost of mobility of the rig, and we're trying to find the correct rig. We need that time to do that. And so I think this gives us the option, if we can get this temporarily abandoned, to go back in and explore this well. I see us doing that in the next 6 months or so. So it could be earlier than that or even after, but we just need additional time.
I have an additional question, Scott. This is the well that you had a little offset, and then you got some tools stuck. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so were you ever able to cover the drill pipe?
We haven't attempted to do that yet. We were planning on doing that when we brought a rig back out, a rig that was capable of pulling enough weight. And the water rig that we were using just doesn't have the capacity to do that. So once we get a bigger rig out there and we decide to re-enter that Cobalt 9 well, that's when we'll attempt to pull out the tools.
Okay, keep me advised of that, because you'll need to plug and abandon that. I know it's very shallow, but
we'll do that. Thank you.
Any other discussion by the commissioners? Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion on this?
Okay, I'm ready. I move that we extend the temporary abandonment of the Cobalt 2022-9 number 1 state permit 1233 for a period of 5 years. Not sure what the beginning date would be. Somebody help me.
What is the beginning date on that, Dennis?
It could be today.
Could be today.
Effective today.
Be today? Okay.
Okay, starting from this current date to complete my motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion on his motion? Any seconds?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 The motion carries. Let's move on to item 4, Ranger Development. The Commission shall review its July 12th decision. There was some confusion with respect to the start dates on our on what we decided on our last meeting. Dennis, can you fill us in on this so we can clarify this point?
Well, the reality is that the rule says that an operator is granted 1 year of confidentiality from the date drilling is completed. If the operator wants to extend that, they need to request it, and the commission may approve up to 2 years of extension from the date of the request. The whole issue was just muddled and a little confused, and that's why we kind of deliberated about this a little bit. But the reality is that they gave me a request dated March 26th, 2019, and provided a list of the wells, which I've also provided you. And they're requesting a 2-year extension on all those from the date of request, which is the 26th of March. I would point out that part of the discussion last time in the motion was that you you would approve the extension of confidentiality, provided that there wasn't anything that had already been placed in the public record or requested for public viewing, because most of these wells actually have gone beyond the 1 year of expiration that they're afforded by the rule. But it sounded like the commission was willing to extend it on 2 years anyway. So based on that 2-year extension should be approved from the date of the request, which was March 26th of this year, for 2 years.
Part of the reason that we had this issue was in the statutes, what is completion? Because we ruled that it would be from the completion date, and it's the statutes aren't very clear in this. So we consulted the AG's office, and would you mind giving your opinion on that?
On what completion is?
Yes, and what your solution was?
Well, my solution was that the rule allows for extension of 2 years from the date of the request, and that was my recommendation. I have not made a determination on what completion is.
There isn't anything in the rule about completion date for confidentiality. It's from the date drilling is completed, which is different than completing the well. A lot of these wells aren't technically completed. There is a definition of completion in the statute, but these wells, a lot of them have been temporarily abandoned, or in some cases they've been shut in because they were producing, which means that they were completed, but some were completed many months ago. So the rule says, first off, from date drilling ceased, and then from the date of completion if you want an extension beyond that year.
So
I'm sorry, did I say that wrong? From the date of the request for up to 2 years after the first 1 year that you're guaranteed.
Is there any questions for the AG's office or discussion on this issue by the commissioners?
Well, I'm ready to take a shot at a motion if there's no discussion.
Go ahead, Dale. Commissioner Nations.
I move to reconsider the July 12th, 2019 approval to grant confidentiality of the Rangers wells included in the table that was presented that day, and change the confidentiality status to March 26th, 2021.
Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, and Dr. Nations, I think you stated your motion very, very well, and I don't think I could have done it. I know I couldn't have done a better job than it, but I think you're asking us to do 2 legislative actions, and I would suggest to you that you consider amending your motion to first the reconsideration part, that we vote on that, and then the second motion should be to extend for the 2-year date.
I agree. I should have done it that way.
Mr. Chair, with that amendment, I would second. You got the floor, Dale.
Can we just adopt that modification of my motion from Steve? Or do we need to start over?
No, Commissioner Cooper was about to say with that modification he would second it. Is that correct?
Yes, and a geologist getting a word in on a lawyer, it's really bad for my profession.
God, I wish I was there in person.
I second that motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, let's go on to this. The motion carries. Let's go on to the second half of that for the extension, for the 2-year extension of privacy. All in favor of that say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Let's move on to number 5, report by the Oil and Gas Administrator.
Thank you, everybody. This is Tony Hines.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
Progress report on recent well activities. In regards to Pollard Helium, I learned just this week that their intent actually is that they do have a zone that they're interested in testing, and they would like to do that testing. They're within their 60-day time frame because their last activities when they were out there cleaning up the site and backfilling the pits and picking up the litter, et cetera, et cetera. So, is Josh Pollard on the phone?
Yes, sir.
So, Josh, did I understand correctly that you can get the logs run, you think, by the middle of September? Was that your expectation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you understand the 60-day constraint in the rule that we're kind of stuck with in regards to activity. You can't have inactivity for longer than 60 days. You understand that from that discussion we had, right?
Correct. And to that point, Dennis, when I talked to you, and it sounds like Scott with Cobalt's run into the same issue, can we bring this to the committee to possibly try to have that rule changed? Because that 60-day rule is extremely, I don't know what the word is, extremely difficult in certain aspects of these wells. Just getting equipment and everything else in. Is there anything we could actually do to possibly try to get that rule changed?
Well, there's a formal process for a rule change, and I guarantee you will be a part of that rule process when it comes for public comment, but we're a ways off before any formal rule is proposed. But yeah, I agree with you. It's an outdated rule. It creates a lot of problems for us and extra work too, but
yeah, it's extremely difficult, so to say the least.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought it up. So, anyway, this is just a progress report. The commission doesn't need to make any vote or anything. Okay. They're going to be testing the thing.
Dennis, while you're on Pollard, the complaint that was filed, the 2 complaints that were filed, or requests.
That was with Arizona Energy Partners.
Oh, that was Energy Partners. Okay.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Sorry.
So anyway, that's the only progress I wanted to say about Pollard. In regards to the rare earth 12-1, the latest estimate that Brad Haycraft can provide is he thinks about August 19th he's going to be studying that well.
Okay.
It's not a formal announcement from him to me, but because he knows he needs to give the official date within 48 hours. But that's his intent right now, so things are proceeding pretty well with him on that. In regards to Ranger Development, they're preparing to drill or submit an application for a new well, but I think it's still a ways off. They're still going through work with State Land Department because it's on a state land parcel. Could get those plans approved. I think they have finished their drilling on the was it the 27.6 Navajo Springs? You finished that drilling and the re-entry on the 33.3 PD. Tony, is that correct?
27-6 has been finished and connected up to the pipeline, and the 33-3 is in process. He's still trying to get down through the Coconino.
Okay, and that's a deepening. The 33.3 is a deepening, correct?
Yes.
And are your gathering lines all together now? Are you back online?
Everything's back online.
Okay, sounds good. Arizona Energy Partners. The last drilling progress report I have is about 6 weeks old. I know they finished drilling at the end of June. We'll have to wait till the end of August to see if they're going to be having any activity. Otherwise, I'm going to have to talk to them about temporary abandonment status again. I think by now they know the drill. They're all aware of it. So we'll have to wait and see. I was thinking maybe Jamie Hogue would be here today, but she's not. She represents Arizona Energy Partners. There was a report of a so-called spill at the 16-1 that was reported to ADEQ, and I can provide photographs on the screen if the commission's interested. I think I may have provided a copy of an email report to you folks.
Yes.
Anyway, that's the inspector's report. The findings pretty much are that there's nothing hazardous out there. What he's seeing, quote-unquote, spilled is just normal day-to-day operations. It's not a violation of any regulations. It's additives and other materials, lubricants, whatever that they use in normal drilling. They assured the inspector that they would be taking care of any spills or cleanups as they leave the site. This is just an FYI of the commission. And the final thing was a new organization report form. Rick Zeiss and I had realized there was a need to revise that based on some more up-to-date information about limited liability partnerships, and I provided a copy to all of you just as an FYI. I'm not asking for any approval or anything, just wanted to make you folks aware that I'm going to be implementing that for all future applications, and I also intend to send this out to existing permittees and get them to update that information. Some of these Form 1 organization reports are pretty old. I suspect we haven't gotten any updates from companies like Enterprise and Plains, the 2 LPG underground storage areas. So I'll be working on that. The annual AZOGCC Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission's Inspectors Forum that they hold every year is this year going to be in North Dakota, because I think it's in conjunction with a tour of hydraulic fracturing well in the Bakken Shale. That'll be taking place the 25th and 26th of October. And that's the extent of my report.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 6, report. First of all, before we move on, is there any questions for the administrator?
Just briefly, Dennis, are you going to be going to that event in North Dakota?
Any other questions for Dennis? Moving on to item 6, report by the chairman. Last week I met with the acting deputy director for air for DEQ, and we went over an agenda of improvements to the website, creation of a new website, and a list that Dennis had put together and I modified. Dennis, did you send that out to the other commissioners?
No, I did not.
Would you send that out to everybody so they have it? It's the acting director is meeting with the director and with the head of GIS and their software people to work out a timetable and a budget for putting all this together, for the changes to the website, to being able to automate it, for all the reporting requirements, allow for the companies to put up the GIS with our approval after it's been submitted, and automate the tracking of follow-up for Dennis. So he's going to have that for us by the end of the month, and then I'll update everybody at the next meeting with respect to that. Separately, I've contacted CMEX to talk about the mortar. There's one of the questions that came up, and Dale, Commissioner Nations, maybe you can talk about this at some point, but it came to my attention that there's a variety of different mortars that are used in the wells, and we really don't have a clear definition or standards for that mortar use, and that we need, as we're moving forward in changes, we need to clarify some of these points to our rules and regulations and the statutes. So I contacted CMEX, and they sent us a list of mortar types that they've used in the past. They're no longer in the oil and gas supplying of mortar. They've sold off their 2 companies that do that and gave us the contact names for that. I've also been in touch with the Western States Petroleum and American Petroleum Institute, and both have volunteered their services and their people to help in addition to the AZOGCC in any work we might want as far as the modification of our rules and bringing them current. So that's the extent of my report. Any questions? Hearing none, let's move on to item 7, legislation affecting the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. I don't know of any. Do any of the other commissioners know of any? Hearing none, let's move on to item 8, call to the public. Is there anybody that would like to say something?
Well, I guess I'll just make a couple.
Please come on up and say your name.
My name is Jim Ballard, and I just make a couple of comments. I want to first express my support for the actions of the Commission in regard to the Cobalt Group's request. I think it's very difficult for small companies to get operations underway, and I think it's very important that we do what we can for them. And just a second comment, I believe I may have been one of, in regards to the Ranger confidentiality, I think I may have been one of the few people to access the records during the period where they were in the public domain, and I just want to say I will certainly support the Commission's intention and maintain that in confidentiality until the end of the 2-year period.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'd like to add, this is Joshua Pollard.
Yes, Josh.
Thank you guys as always for your hard work. Back to this 60 days rule, it is extremely difficult to do that. Just as I said earlier, moving equipment in, this is some of the most complex 1,000 feet in the country in terms of drilling. So this 60-day rule is extremely difficult to work with. If there's anything we can do to possibly change that, that would be great. And also, I had a question about plugging and abandoning. Most states, you cut it off under surface about 3 feet to ensure no plows. Whose liability will it fall on if somebody runs into it with a car or something like that? It's a steel pipe sticking out of the ground.
This is a period, unfortunately, we can't answer you. We can listen to your comments, but we'd have to put that on an agenda for a future item meeting to be able to respond to you. So if you want to submit that to Dennis for a future meeting's discussion, please do so.
All right, thank you so much.
Do we need an executive session for anything? I don't believe so. Any other, is there any announcements that we have? Anything that needs to be added to the future agenda? Hearing none.
This is Dale.
Yes, Dale.
I'm very interested in hearing when we might hear from the Attorney General's office about that opinion. Do we have any information on that yet?
He said that at the last meeting that it would be the end of the year before he would have that for us.
Oh, okay.
Has that changed any?
It'll be faster than the end of the year, but I was just saying I wasn't going to be able to get to it by this meeting.
Okay.
So I'll do it as quickly as I can.
Thank you. Not hearing anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Darn, for a second I thought we were going to stay here the rest of the day. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good weekend.
Bill?
Thank you.
Bill, you're not on the line, okay.
Go back.
Yeah, it's okay.
Would be good.